The last time I was hooked up to one of these was at a wedding. They gave everyone, thank you, Tim. They gave everyone who was doing a reading one of these, and I did my reading and went back to sit down. And then after the wedding, I was gathered around with a bunch of people, and we're all making catty remarks about various people. And mine was still on, so we were broadcasting throughout the... And then there's that, one of those police movies where he's also presenting. He has one of these, and he goes off to the bathroom. Anyone see that police movie? He goes off to the bathroom, and this is still on, but anyway. So given no direction, we're going to wing this, but I want to know first if there's any questions in general, and I'm prepared to talk more specifically about some of the work we're doing, and maybe hopefully that will generate questions. Yeah, we have the results as they pertain to WINTAC. We'll be going, I have not seen them, so not in a, other than what Tim presented, so not in a position to comment. So that's what we're spending this afternoon on, is looking at those results and then determining which states are priorities in terms of contact, and so, and then moving forward. Dave? We have not. We're, in fact, I want to talk about those pilots maybe in more detail, and that will be helpful. And then maybe talk about some of the work. We've already started actually intensive TA, and talk about what we're doing and or proposing to doing in some of the states. So maybe that's a good start off, is the pilot projects. The first one is the Career Index Plus, and that's the software that we're going to make available at no cost to every state agency and every counselor and every VR agency. And as I mentioned, you can go online now and see the Career Index, and you can actually log in and access that information. And what we're hoping to show in our pilot projects is that counselors, for the first time, will be able to sit down with the individuals that they're working with and literally explore any occupation in terms of what are the skills needed for that job, what kind of training is needed for that job, where that training exists in their community, and then finally down to just the community where that person lives, where are the job openings, who currently is advertising for jobs. And this isn't meant to eliminate any career for any individual. It's meant to really give them real-time information on what's required to do that job. This could potentially have implications across not only regular job development and employment and career counseling, but it could have implications in terms of customized employment, and would potentially meet requirements under 511 in terms of providing career counseling. So for some individuals, they can do it themselves and figure it out. Others will need guided tours of it and guided experiences that counselors will be giving them. And so our approach is going to be, well, we're piloting it now, the Career Index, just the regular Career Index in South Carolina. So, in fact, yesterday we had the initial training. But what we're going to work with, every state that we can work with, is not only providing the online training, which will be in typical webinar form and then archived, and this will be a series of trainings, but we'll also work with each state in developing policies and procedures, developing a cadre of labor market information mentors in the states that can take this up and then train everybody else and keep this going long after pilots have ended and our project has ended. So the idea, as I mentioned, everything we do has some element of sustainability around it, and this one does too. So we just don't want to plop this platform on states and then leave. We'll do a lot of work individually and collectively with states around the Career Index. Career Index Plus.
Will that integrate into the tab that the net runs, the talent access portal?
Into Sarah?
Tab.
TAP. The question is, will it integrate into TAP? No, is the short answer. And I don't know if John's here. We should probably be having those discussions, but TAP can be used in conjunction with this and probably should be. But the amount of labor market information and job openings is going to be far more extensive than anything that TAP has. Just because this accesses any labor market information system in the United States. So there's going to be thousands of jobs posted, literally thousands. Yes?
So in a state like Wisconsin, how do you assure the real-life information for our state?
Yes, down to
How do you do that?
we access all existing, like monster.com, and anybody who it scrubs the web for job openings. It's and my level of being able to explain the technology behind it's pretty limited. On our website, which is WINTAC, WINTAC.org, there's a little more information on it. But yeah, it will, and it's real-time information. It's uploaded every evening, so it's current. So our anticipation is that it will truly revolutionize the way VR agencies interact with clients around labor market and job-driven information. And to that extent, we'll also be coordinating training and delivery of this with the job-driven VR TAC. So moving on to Sarah. Sarah is the semi-automated rehabilitation assistant. And in a nutshell, what Sarah does is we'll interface with every single VR partner, including our single workforce partners system, and will provide real-time case management and reporting across programs at intervals specified under the law. So that's what it means at a systems level. It probably one of the most perplexing elements of WIOA for states that is going to keep IT people up at night, probably already is. But Sarah, through our pilot sites, we hope to prove that that's a solution and a cost-effective solution to integration of data. Sarah will work with any existing system, including VR system, no matter if it's Libra or Aware or homegrown systems, and it will be a relatively cost-efficient adjunct to those systems. It will require minimal levels of IT support in the beginning and also minimal maintenance moving forward. So that's what we hope to prove in our pilots. And from a counselor level, what this means, and this is the really cool part, Sarah uses artificial intelligence to ultimately connect a VR counselor and a client via that individual's cell phone. So the interface between the client now is their cell phone number, not so much their Social Security number. But for instance, here's how Sarah will operate. At any given interval, Sarah will automatically queue a client that's in the workforce system and ask them if they've worked. That'll send a text. The individual will respond back with their text saying, yes, I'm working. Then Sarah will ask them where they're working. They'll provide that information. Sarah may even ask them to take a picture of their paycheck, and which that individual can do. It will ask them if they're happy with their job, etc. All of this will be done just automatically without the counselor having to consciously do that. Counselors will be aware that this is being done, and all of this will be translated into case notes into that individual's electronic file for the agency. But it takes away 90% of the requirements of WIOA that a counselor would have to do in addition to their regular job. So it has implications big implications on the systems level with data integration and case management, but has also big implications at an individual and client level. So we're looking currently to do 3 pilots. Being part of the pilot will be free to VR, workforce entities. There'll be some cost depending on how many seats each agency has. If the pilot site is small enough, our grant will pay for the entire pilot project across partners, but it's guaranteed that VR can participate free of charge. So there'll be 3 pilots. We're currently looking strongly at Virginia, Philadelphia, 1 workforce site in Florida, Michigan, Hawaii has expressed some interest, but at this point, until we finalize these 3 sites, we're open to demonstrate this, Sarah, to anyone who's interested. And we hope to have sites up and running by the first quarter of next year. Yes?
Can Sarah be applied to other parts of the rehab process besides the person's own job? Or is that something maybe in the future?
Yeah, I think the future, when you think about artificial intelligence and you just look at the limited applications of Sarah, that there's so many ways that we could automate the reporting, the information gathering and reporting, and just change the whole relationship of the counselor and let them focus on providing career counseling and labor market information, and let some automated system do that. And more than likely, that interface will be through a phone. As we're working with young people, think of your kids and who are more likely to communicate with their parents now through a text than actually talking to them. And so we think that this will be the future, but now to meet the requirements under WIOA, this is the test. But I think we should all be looking at automated ways of collecting data, and this is the first strike in that direction. So if you're in a state that's interested in looking at this, and and there's a lot of politics around systems coming and bidding, but this is a relatively cost-effective way of at least finding out if we can truly integrate across workforce partners, and if we can certainly affect the way counselors and individuals with disabilities exchange information back and forth.
Those states that you mentioned, do they have like a where or their own?
Several states have AWARE. One state, Florida, has their own homegrown that's been homegrown for years. And the key for us when we're looking at the final selection, and it won't be just our call, it'll be RSA will be involved in that decision, is the number of workforce partners in addition to VR. So just having VR interested is critical, but we need at least have Wagner Pizer involved. That would be great just because of the numbers. Questions about Sarah?
How do you protect, like, confidentiality from something like that? Like, looking for state PR, for example, if they're using phone numbers, or cell phone numbers, I have some people that, like, literally change their phone every month or every couple of weeks, or whatever like that. If you're asking for, or if I'm also submitting, like, a picture of my paycheck, how could I be comfortable knowing that that won't get intercepted and something like steal my identity or something?
Yeah, that's a question I can't answer, but I'm sure somebody has, but I will take that's an excellent point. We're protected by Social Security number, but you're right, if that's on a check, then that's certainly an issue. All right, moving on to the third workforce investment pilot project, and that is, that's peer mentoring. So we're going to pilot peer mentoring in 4 states across the country. Currently, Florida has a version of peer mentoring. The general agency is doing this under contract with PolicyWorks, but that's outside our grant. What we hope to build in the states that we're going to pilot in is a system where we come in and train peer mentors and state agency people who, or CRP people, community rehab people, who are the coordinators of peer mentoring and actually the service delivery system. That we will train anywhere from 25 to 50, depending on the size of the state and the need, peer mentors, and then about a quarter of that for the coordinators. And these peer mentors will all be teamed up with youth in high school, and for the purpose of helping guide that individual through the transition process, through work experience processes, building self-advocacy skills, building community engagement activities, building networks that will serve that individual as they move forward, transitioning out of high school into employment. And this is a model that's been proven over and over again that we think will be a really strong adjunct to VR services. And if we can embed this in state agencies and take it one step further and embed this into high schools, into the education system, not only will VR agencies and high schools be able to leverage what they do in a big way, this would count toward the 15% set aside for sure for VR agencies, and will go a long way of meeting high schools' ability to reach everybody that they serve beyond the classroom.
So are they paid?
Yes. So what we do as part of our grant, the question is, are the peer mentors trained, paid? We will train them, and we will train the coordinators, and we will work with the VR agencies in establishing fee codes. So it'll be the VR agencies that will pay ultimately the peer mentors, either directly or through the community rehab programs. More than likely, these will be fees that the community rehab programs can bill against. So we have not identified any states. There's been strong interest, and we're looking to starting in October. We'll do one state, then the next quarter, another state, until a year later we'll have 4 states in operation.
Have you had discussions with the IL centers, IL programs?
Specifically in Florida, IL centers will be a big part of this program. And that's another benefit to the peer mentoring. It helps create stronger links to the IL centers than VR agencies normally would have with their youth in transition. So yes, that's a great question.
So if a state would be interested, do you just contact our liaison?
Either if the states are interested, have them contact their liaison, or send us a note through the website, through to Chaz Compton or myself, and we'll be happy to make sure those connections are made.
When you say and maybe I missed this, if it was some of those in high school, are you thinking like a recent graduate coming back and doing the mentoring?
More than likely, somebody who actually knows the ropes. I mean, it could be maybe even a senior in high school mentoring a sophomore in high school, but that's the general idea.
That's what I think it was 2 people that don't know what's going on. They're not really helping each other.
Yeah, right. And this obviously would have implications for the mentor too in terms of their growth and development, so a lot of positives there. Dale.
Yeah, Jim, so with WIOA, we're making this a people thing out of this, and as you said, big charges. And then yesterday, the research around transition is all saying that leaving school with paid employment is the greatest indicator of our ability to employ out. Just a general question about that. Just kind of like from the standpoint of your technical systems and that ultimate goal. As a technical systems center, what are your thoughts and strategies around trying to make that specific outcome?
I mean, we think it all revolves around work experience. Actually, to take that to a broader level, none of what any of the centers hope to accomplish in terms of the ultimate goals will work unless there's really strong emphasis on employer engagement and work. And so it's one thing to deliver pre-employment training services in a vacuum, but if you're not focused ultimately around work experience, we're just not going to see the results. And we're very results focused, very outcome focused. And in fact, we had a big discussion with our staff. We all met earlier this week, spent a lot of time with RSA talking about outcomes, and every outcome leads to the ultimate outcome of why $3.2 billion is dropped on the system, and it's around employment. So we feel unless we're able to work with agencies and their business relations, their employment consultant people to get work experience opportunities, internships, it's just not going to work. So we're extremely focused, laser focused on that. And to the extent that we don't have the capacity directly to help work with agencies around employment issues, that we'll be looking to entities like Transcend and a whole lot of others as partners on this. So.
And to
Does not have to be, no.
And the second question, I might have missed it, but I haven't heard family involved in any of the assistance centers. Family support and involvement is critical for you to be successful. Is there anybody doing technical assistance to families?
There should be, and it absolutely has to be taken into the equation. When we're doing intensive TA with the states, that hopefully that will be factored in to that work. That, yeah, you're right, and especially something like peer mentoring, that's going to be a lot less successful unless families are engaged. So that has to be a critical part of, one, educating families on the role of peer mentoring, getting their buy-in, increasing access to the individual through the families, and getting families directly involved in some of the activities. So you're absolutely right. And families are critically involved in another area, the Section 511, the sub-minimum wage, and state agencies' obligations around career counseling. That career counseling directly with the individual is certainly appropriate and called for, but there has to be an element of outreach and education and benefits planning and financial literacy that's targeted to the family, especially if you're looking to move people away from SSI and SSDI. So that's a critical point.
Can I comment on the question too? As the technical assistance centers, the design of promise is really now right in the middle of the work. It has a really strong design element of the family. And what I'm hoping is the technical assistance centers, and a number of the folks that are involved with the technical assistance centers are called the promise too. But if some of that early research can be shared with the technical assistance centers about what's working with families, I'm hoping that the technical assistance centers get that out.
Yeah, they absolutely have to. Yeah, agreed.
Do you have a process for that promise involvement, communication
We don't have a process, but what we do have now, as the grants are getting kicked off, is communication, which is critical, and means of getting together. We don't have a plan. That's a good question. We should probably look toward maybe solidifying a process and how we're going to work together strategically. Great point. So how many state agency people are here? Wow, a bunch. That's good. So I don't know if this is the forum, just because of the size of the room. This is kind of clunky, and but I would like to hear from the state agencies again how you're feeling about, one, the proliferation of technical assistance centers in relationship to your already overwhelmed jobs of just trying to figure out WIOA and trying to implement it. Do you have the time, do you have the resources to take advantage of everything that's going to be coming at you, or is this just seem like an overwhelming explosion of events? I didn't mean to phrase that as a yes or no. So what could we do to help facilitate this for you? What are your expectations?
Well, with the WINTAC, I know you have liaison relationships.
We do. Every state agency has a liaison.
And I guess I'm not totally clear how that's supposed to work.
Okay.
So if we have needs, do we talk to Chaz and you, or must we only
Yeah, we try not to be that restrictive. Any way you can get a hold of us is good. Hopefully, if your state has not heard from the liaison, let us know, and we'll make that happen. We think we've reached everybody. And that's where the conversation kind of starts. But these need to be ongoing conversations, and we're at this point picking up the cue from the state agencies that, one, hopefully that awareness of us and the other technical assistance centers already exists, and that understanding of your need and what you need from us. It's not like we're sitting around waiting for you, but we don't want to push, and we want to recognize that you're busy and have a lot of priorities, but we certainly want to be receptive and responsive to you.
I think we'll just have to see how it develops. Personally, I'm excited about WINTAC. I think your scope is such that, our needs can be met.
Yeah, and in a lot of the areas like the common performance measures, none of us are able to move ahead that much until regs come out, but I mean, what information we can provide you is a look at what was required that's no longer required, what was required will continue, and some educated guesses about what common performance measures and other data elements will look like. So.
I think it'd be helpful to have some, and maybe there is emails and they just haven't gotten to me, but regarding like some of these pilots, we've heard about them, but we haven't really known the process to get more information or what we need to be doing. And we talked to Chaz about some, but maybe we're missing the boat on what we actually need to do. So it might be helpful to have more clear communication through our liaison. If you're interested in these things, this is what you should be doing now. This is what it's about. Because I don't think I've heard the peer mentoring one until right now. So it'd be helpful to know what those are and what the process is.
Okay.
Getting your name in there.
Good point. So what I think CSAVR sent some information out nationally around SARA. We should do the same thing around the peer mentoring. So through CSAVR, that's the quickest way of getting it to directors, and then we'll reinforce that through the liaisons. Any other comments about, from VR agency's perspective, what we should be? How can we get information to you quickly?
I'm not part of the agency, but I have a question regarding the regulations. What is your intentions once the regulations come out? I mean, I hear it's about 1,000 pages, so. What is the action plan?
We're going to do a webinar and actually read the regulations, so you'll want to sign up for that one. We had a meeting with RSA last month, and the state monitoring and program improvement people, once the regulations are coming out, they're going to host a series of live events and a series of webinars around the regulations. We have encouraged RSA to sit down with all of the technical assistance centers prior to the release of the regs and develop a plan not only to get the information out from them, but to coordinate our efforts along with theirs in getting the information out. The challenge we're going to have is that more than likely we're going to get the regulations the same time you are. And what we want to avoid, and RSA for certain wants to avoid, is anyone besides RSA giving technical assistance around the regulations that might conflict with anything they would say. So we have a really short time to figure out how we can how we can be involved and support them. We think that the aftermath, that after the regulations are out, disseminated, there's been discussions and presentations, and then that's when all the technical assistance centers will really be engaged, like, okay, here it is, it's final, how do we figure out how to operationalize that? So I think that will be more of our role than interpreter of regulations. So.
I'm actually with the client assistance program, and we used to receive our technical assistance case, but I don't see us mentioned anywhere anymore, so do you know where we go for technical assistance?
The question is where client assistance programs go for technical assistance. I would say you should be able to access the same level of technical assistance through the VR system as any other VR agency. If RSA is listening, they can disabuse you of that notion later, but I would hope that if there's especially intense technical assistance in your state, that you would be part of the consortium that's involved. I think it would be important that client assistance programs be. Does that make sense?
Well, I remember being involved when the regs came out in 92, I think we had intensive training around the changes in the regs, and like I said, I just kind of feel like the outside step shop. You know, I don't think we've been involved with any of the
That might be something to take up with your funder. So we still, how much time do we have? When does this? So I want to talk a little bit about the intense, for lack of a better word, intensive technical assistance that as you all understand what your needs are, especially after the regs come out, and you see a need for not only us, I'm speaking for all the technical assistance centers, that our approach is that there's no wrong door to get technical assistance. If you come to us and it looks more appropriate for targeted communities, that will certainly steer you that way. So we just don't want people in the States to try to figure out, well, which technical assistance center is the most appropriate. We also want to have many discussions with you, not only fleshing out what your needs are, but more importantly, what resources you need from the Technical Assistance Center, what resources you're able to contribute to this, what your expectations in terms of outputs are, in terms of number of people trained, changes in the capacity of your agency, and then ultimately, what are the outcomes, including very measurable outcomes, such as percentage of people closed, percentage of youth that move into post-secondary education or directly into competitive integrated employment, reductions in people going into non-integrated employment. Those are the kinds of outcomes we'll be putting on the table for you to consider. So, as I mentioned during my spiel, our work in the state level is totally outcome driven. Part of that is that's a requirement of the funder, and that's a good thing, but part of that is to ensure that your resources and our resources achieve some tangible, discernible outcome that we can say as a result of the work that this was accomplished. We said it would be accomplished, and if it's not, that our activities don't have a definable beginning and end date per se. In some cases that may be the case, but if we need to do continued work, follow-up work, help build sustainability, help build internal capacity, that's what we're there to do. Dave?
We're asking for input from state agencies. And I will say there seems to be an awful lot of overlap between the technical assistance centers. You have a component on transition, there's a transition technical assistance center, there's a youth technical assistance center, and even the target groups are being viewed. So who determines who provides the technical assistance?
Yeah, we want to, Dave's question is about overlap of technical assistance centers. That's true. And we want to take the responsibility of figuring that out for you all. So, as I said earlier, you come to us with this express need, then it's up to us to figure out as a consortium who's in the best position to do it, who needs to be involved. Maybe several technical assistance centers need to be involved. That's up for us to figure out, put together a plan and present that to you. And also too, again, the level of communication among the technical assistance centers is at an all-time high, and particularly the youth-focused centers. So I'm really encouraged that, one, they talk to each other, they do joint planning together. Hopefully there'll be very, very minimal redundancies around what's delivered to you in terms of anything from webinars to any other targeted assistance. So we don't want to be redundant. We don't want to be tripping over ourselves. We need to communicate. And the onus is upon us to figure that out, not state agencies.
So this is a very basic question, but I've heard this morning many people say technical assistance, and they said intensive technical assistance. So where's the difference and why?
So there's 3 levels. So RSA had this template when they put together the grants. All of them had universal technical assistance, which for the most part is webinars, something anyone can access at any time around a given topic. Conference presentations fall into that category. The next level is targeted technical assistance, where a state may ask for some information. They're putting together an MOU. They want to know what other states are doing. They want to know what are critical elements of MOU. So you work in a very short period of time with an agency, providing them information. They take that information and go about their work. So both of those, universal and target, have some level of usefulness. Universal information is probably most useful in terms of just letting people know what the resources are, getting information out there. Targeted, the same thing, that you can't really point to a discernible outcome as a result of that. That's why the intensive TA, the work that's done in the states, that's very thoughtful in terms of planning and resource involvement and the activities, that there may be some training involved, but that training is also tied to levels of TA, that the old method of train and leave a state is gone. All training that's tied to intensive TA has other technical assistance components in it. So it's a long term, it could be months, it could be several years, could be life of the grant depending on the project. So every intensive TA should look different, and so does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
So the challenge from our end really is, I mentioned earlier, is to figure out what's going to be useful in terms of in terms of the universal TA, not to repeat what other centers are doing, to give you information that can be used can be accessed by your staff at any time. And our focus will be more on the intensive TA. And then there's one more area that's tied to that, and that's communities of practice, which I hadn't talked about at all. So communities of practice are built into all the Technical Assistance Center grants. So that's another area that we're going to have to really collaborate and coordinate who's going to manage the technical assistance around communities of practice, who's going to facilitate them and manage them. Is it going to be multiple TAs? So we have the responsibility of doing community of practice for every topic area, including integration, including common performance measures, competitive integrated employment, supported employment, customized employment, Section 511, and pre-employment transition services. So as Dave said, there's a lot of overlap. So we can't be having like 15 or 20 communities of practice going around, some of them stepping over each other. So we're going to have to be very purposeful in designing those. And it's not clear whether communities of practice, do we deal with people who are, for instance, customized employment? Is a community of practice just for those agencies that are doing customized employment, which is probably the most truest definition of communities of practice. It's actually people who are doing it and learn from each other and grow and evolve their training programs. Or do we open it up, have it open-ended in terms of a larger audience, a national audience, where we're just sharing information? We see more impact from limiting the size and the scope of community of practice, and I think that will be our focus as a technical assistance center. But that's something that we're grappling with now.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the old system with the 10 regional case centers, they always had a national, they had a national pack, the national case center. And I thought that role was sort of to do what you're talking about as far as integrating the 10 case regions versus not overlapping when it's necessary. And so now with this change in RSA and the WINTAC centers, I'm wondering if RSA provided enough funding, or if there's something like that built into the new technical assistance center. So that piece that you mentioned, who's going to coordinate the community practice?
So there's two elements to that question. RSA just recently refunded or has a new contract with New Additions to reinvent what was the National Clearinghouse of Rehabilitation Training Materials. They will serve as the repository of posting information about what the TACs are doing, posting webinars, archiving webinars, those kinds of things. They won't necessarily have a coordinating component to it. That will be us and RSA. It's the Technical Assistance Collaboration, TACC, that includes RSA. And we met in DC around CSAVR. We'll probably meet in person at CSAVR again, and we talk every 2 weeks. We have a spreadsheet, an internal spreadsheet that I think will be shared with states that lists every proposed webinar of every technical assistance center, lists where intensive technical assistance is either happening or proposed. And from that information that we jointly supply, and the needs assessment too, it's up to us to come out and say, okay, who's going to be working on this webinar? Who's going to be working on this community of practice? Who's going to, looking at the results from the needs assessment that was recently completed and is ongoing, who's going to take the lead in contacting the states? And so all of that is the collaboratory, whatever it's called. So it really is an internal among all the technical assistance centers and RSA. And we feel too that the collaboration should include entities outside RSA or NIDER funded technical assistance centers, including some of the DOL funded programs like the Disability and Employment Initiative. They all provide valuable information. They all work with states to certain levels. And so we really have two charges: to work with the states and work within our own as a group to coordinate whatever we do to you all. So, and both of them are critical functions. That answer your question?
Yes.
And then too, and this is a commercial, do you want to take a minute to talk about your newly funded?
Sure. Thanks for asking. My name is Mary Cooper, and I'm from Wright State University. We potentially have a really good opportunity to put together a registry of evidence-based practices in VR. And so coming to this conference has been real helpful because there's ways that we're thinking that we can, after completing our work, hopefully have this registry set up. And how do we disseminate that so that VR counselors and other stakeholders can use that information about evidence-based practices? And so potentially, that registry, wherever it's housed after it's created and funded, really has a role within these state centers.
Yeah, and I think it has a huge role because part of our, and it's a big part of what we do, is getting evidence-based practices out to the states. And so obviously, as you're compiling that information, that's going to be a major source of us to go back to the states and saying, this could potentially be an answer to the issue that you have. Let's try it out. Let's do a pilot project around it. Let's test it. So.
Well, and the peer support is a great example because if research shows that if you get kids involved early, it's a huge predictor for later employment. And so there's this, not just a clearinghouse, but there's this place that holds evidence-based practices that relate to that peer support model or any evidence-based practice that helps kids get jobs early, which again predicts later employment. If a new VR counselor or whomever wants to go and say, hey, I'm interested in really doing this or putting something together, I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing, they can go to this registry and not only find information about what it actually is, but training materials and dissemination materials and potentially lessons learned in implementing something like this. So it would be a registry that not only provides information, but functionality.
Yeah.
How do we do this? And evidence-based practices more and more as well as sustainability.
Absolutely. And I mean, just participating in yesterday's discussions, and I think this whole scenario provides an unprecedented opportunity to take all of the research that's done, millions of dollars of research, and really quickly get it out there to the states in practical ways that they can use. So I think this is, and I hate to use the word exciting, but I think it is an unprecedented time to be able to do just that.
And practical is a key word.
Yeah.
Because if you're a VR counselor with an extremely large caseload, you've got all these, they're from experience or from hearing, what it's like to be a VR counselor. It has to be practical. It has to be worthwhile. It has to show that it's effective and show that it's efficient and show that it has good outcomes.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's their job.
Right.
The registry has to help them. So how do we do that?
Exactly. Yeah, it has to meet the needs of the states and has to be proven to meet the needs of the state. So this will be great. And so I have about a minute. I just have another quick question to the group. We have a website that we're building and growing, and we've had a lot of discussions earlier this week among our team. just anyone who's willing to speak on this, when you go searching websites, what are you looking for? Why do you go to websites? What can our website bring that will make your job better, your lives easier, instead of just having a clearinghouse of stuff?
I was actually thinking about this morning. One of the questions I get in our state is someone's trying to find a reference or find more information about something. Rather than going to a website, they usually send me an email and say, hey, can you let me know what this reference is or where I can find information about this? And then I usually help them do that. And I started to think if a website could have an interactive feature where someone could ask that question rather than having to do the digging. Here's my question. The only way it will work, though, is if there's a quick response, because if they can get an answer from me faster, they won't come to the
Yeah.
website.
So what would be quick? That's a great point, but what would be quick response?
I typically end up having to respond to folks, I would say, in a business day or two.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Yes.
I think it's also helpful rather than having a whole bunch of just links under resources. If there's even just a sentence or two that tells me what it is. Because I end up clicking through a lot of resources thinking, oh my gosh, this is just like a big interagency agreement or it's not what I thought. And you have to then go to each link.
Yeah, great. That's a great point too. Quick summaries, just quick, tell me what I'm looking at. Yeah, excellent. All right, it's break time, I think. Thank you, guys. Yeah.